All
Okay.
right. Okay, so I apologize, but I haven't had a chance yet to read uh your paper that you sent. Um
Okay.
yeah, you sent me a paper. Maybe you could just lay out what your thoughts were. So yeah, you sent me a paper. Um a, I can't remember what the title is, but basically the gist is that there was um uh there the impacts that megafauna have in grazing, principles
Yeah.
for grazing and megafauna.
Yeah, it's right here. Can you see it? How
Yeah.
the extinction of the large hang-gut fermenters degraded soils and altered ecosystem stability, and what can we do about it with our grazing?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, this is a research paper that I made uh, of how the basic plant physiology in our grasses and forages was molded over hundreds of thousands of years by grazing animals,
Uh-huh.
and how the growth points came to be close to the soil of the grasses, and how grasses and forages started to uh, store energy in roots and crowns underground instead of on trunks as forests do, trees. So a savanna was created when we had those large hindgut fermenters who could digest much rougher forage that ruminants cannot do well on it. But together, ruminants and hindgut fermenters like elephants, zebras, mastodons, mammoths, giant ground sloths, and others could consume the lower energy, higher fiber, lower protein parts of forages and forest species and thrive, while ruminants require a higher diet, higher quality diet. And that's why in migrations nowadays, like in the Serengeti, uh, zebras go first, then wildebeest, and then a few weeks later come the gazelle because they require a higher quality forage. If we take a cornerstone species like the zebra of the picture, the gazelle will not do well and the wildebeest will not do well and the environment will degrade. And that's what happened when people hunted to extinction those large megafauna, which all of them were hindgut fermenters. Because of the physiological way they digest forage, hindgut fermenters can grow to larger sizes. Wait, this usually. Uh, Hindgut fermenters could grow to much larger sizes than ruminants, like elephants nowadays. And ruminants have a limit to their size given by the way they digest, which is the four stomachs, but they are much more efficient in producing kilograms of weight gain per ton of dry matter of grass than hindgut fermenters, which consume more and have a lower digestive rate. So together, both of those groups achieve the highest productivity per square kilometer of land than each one by themselves. When these huge hindgut fermenters were killed off, then thatch or too much residual was began to accumulate in the land. And that created more combustible material because now we did not have the hindgut fermenters to consume it and return it to the soil as manure. So people started to burn to lure into their territory, the tribes, uh, the migratory by now only ruminant herds, which couldn't take down that thatch, that high residual. So that's when burning started to go up. And we can see that through fossilized carbon. All this has been studied, and all the links are there in this paper, so you can see them. And then vegetation started to shift, and localized weather started to change. So, as I explained here, did the environment change because we killed off the large hindgut fermenters, or the large hindgut fermenters went extinct because the weather changed? Well, this is a radical yet evidence-based theory that the overhunting of the large hindgut fermenters, mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and wild horses, disrupted ecosystem function so profoundly that it triggered a cascading shift in ecosystem stability, fire, vegetation, and soil fertility. And that was the role of them. Now they're gone. Now we need to step in and carry out the role they did for over hundreds of thousands of years. We are by now only ruminants. We have cows, cattle, sheep, and goats. So these hindgut fermenters lower standing dry matter, which otherwise accumulates in fields fires, stimulated regrowth through complete grazing of mature forage, and cycled nutrients more rapidly through their dung, and created open grasslands. As they, like mastodons, they consume even conifers branches.
Yeah, I am totally in 100% agreement with all this.
Mhm. Mm,
Um, I
nice.
yeah, I am um very, very familiar with it. I've studied a lot about that. Maybe you've read some of my stuff that I've made on it. And then so then to me, the question then comes, um, it, how do you mimic this best in the modern context? And
I'll get to that.
um,
That's very important because we need to know how to mimic that. So megafauna also created long-lived soil carbon because they consume the stems, not only the leaves. When we consume only the leaves and leave the stems, we need to remember that green leaves produce energy by photosynthesis, while stems consume energy by respiration. So when we take off the stems along with the leaves after on a well-recovered plant, we can get higher green leaf regrowth and improve root exudate patterns. And that's where this gets interesting, because when grasses are allowed to fully mature before grazing, the root exudates change from sugary to fatty acids and amino acids. And I send you a paper on that I have also. It's called How to Build Long-Lived Soil Carbon in Your Soil by Stockpiling Grasses. So we do this in a section of the land, of the farm or ranch, every year to have standing hay for the dry season and to improve the soil, and very importantly, to recruit seedlings of your best forage species. So when we get fat soil microbes by stockpiling grasses when their root exudate shifts from sugary to fatty, then they are digested by fungi, resulting in stable soil humus. That's what holds water, stores nutrients, and enhances structure and infiltration. And you can feel it when you walk on your stockpile paddocks. The soil gets spongy. It gets spongy because the fungi to bacterial ratio changes, because now we're feeding more fungi, not bacteria. Bacteria feed on sugars mostly, and they make soil compacted. Fungi feed on lignin, fatty acids, and amino acids, and they make the soil spongy. So when we killed off these hindgut fermenters, the carbon building cycle deteriorated, soil became increasingly compacted and drier. So we got diminished resilience. So this is what we need to understand before we talk about grazing. the importance of consuming the stems, not only the leaves. Modern rotational grazing often avoids removing stems, a practice called top grazing or selective grazing, but this contradicts grass physiology, which was molded by these hindgut fermenters together with ruminants. So when stems are left behind and not removed, they shade growth points and lessen new green leaf formation because of hormones and lack of sunlight. I was in Cumbria, in North Wales, teaching this to people, and they told me, hey, but we've been told that selective grazing works well, and we just have to graze tall, and you need grass to grow grass, and you cannot bear the soil armor and all those things. So I told them, okay, let's go out and have a walk. And there were 500 people, so they didn't want to go out. Let's have a walk on the grass. So we went out, and I told them, now kneel down to the ground and part the grass with your hands and look at the growth points. Are they green? Are they yellow? Or are they white? If they are white, they are dead. And they did it, and then they saw they were white, they were dead from lack of sunshine, and that creates larger interplant spacing, the opposite of what we want. We want closer interplant spacing to have a better solar panel, which is made by green leaves. So then they started listening. Before that, they didn't want to listen. So that's why I said, okay, in contrast, non-selective grazing of adequately recovered plants down to 1 to 4 inches, as practiced in the total grazing program, removes stems and encourages uniform green leaf regrowth. And this boosts energy flow, forage productivity, and root depth and strength. Then we get fat roots. All these are crucial for rebuilding soil fertility. So that's the modern solution is total grazing to restore the ancient functions. So in nature, when do herbivores grow fat? In the green season or in the dry season? Hmm?
Green season,
Yeah, and
especially on the
wait.
transition.
I'm just asking you, when do they grow fat? In the dry season or in the green season?
In the green season, get the fattest in the transition
Ah,
between the green season and the dry season.
exactly. And then, because that's when the energy is higher. And then they maintain their body condition through the dry season, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we want to mimic. So in the green season, we practice the art of jumping paddocks. We divide the farm in 3 sections, and in sections 1 and 2, we always take our livestock to our highest quality pasture to keep them gaining the fastest, to keep them as fat as possible and productive as possible, high winning weights, high fertility, and above all, optimal health. That's what we need. And then we stockpile any paddock that is a little over mature. We stockpile it and the whole of section 3 because that's the poorer paddocks that we want to improve the fastest. So by doing this, we mimic ancient grazers which could migrate, and now we cannot have them migrate. We mimic the role of the hindgut fermenters with our livestock, ruminants now, by, when necessary, when they are grazing the stockpile grass and it's low in protein, we supplement with a small amount of a high protein supplement, and that allows us to save 3 times what we would cost in hay, feeding hay. Now you need to remember the main determinant of profits on a farm or ranch is stocking rate. But stocking rate, considering animals in good body condition, not having them go thin, because a thin cow will not make you money, while a good body condition and healthy cow or you will make you money if you manage correctly. So this goes beyond grazing. Ecosystem engineering restores the original function that was lost with the extinction of megafauna, and the results speak by themselves. We have usually doubled the stocking rate compared to rotational selective grazing, even what they call holistic grazing management. And we had tripled and gone to 5 times later when we improved the soil, because at the first year, what we do is we prevent the regrazing of young plants, as that will shorten the roots. We stockpile forage as standing hay. So we want to save money on hay, and we also want to recruit the species, the seedlings of the best species, and we want to promote deep rooting and enhance soil carbon and shift the fungi to bacterial ratio to more fungal. So we may never fully separate the causes of the Pleistocene's extinction, although there are many papers nowadays that point to human extinction, human hunting. In all continents, when humans arrived, 5,000 years later, they went extinct. Less in Africa. In Africa, it is taking longer, and the degradation is taking longer, but it surely happened. And you can see it. I was in Tanzania. We arrived in Kenya in 1985, and now it's a whole different continent. So by understanding grass physiology that was molded for this by these animals and grazing appropriately, we can restore soil fertility, increase grass growth, and stabilize our regional climate from the ground up. That begins with total grazing, not as we were taught, but as nature intended. So I'm trying to go back to how nature functions, not after we killed most of them and we saw what we called a pristine environment. That's not a pristine environment. We need to go back in time and look at how it really was, or go to 15, 20 years ago in the Okavango Delta in Botswana, how it functioned, how the elephants were the last ones to leave the delta after taking off all the branches, twigs, and leftovers of ruminants, because they can digest it and thrive. Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
That's your pitch. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And so the questions I have around that is when you say go to the best ones, that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
that's my practice. I actually think honestly that we are very similar in what we do. And
okay.
and so like for myself, I um I basically think about it a lot. I was influenced a lot by Bud Williams.
Oh,
Um
yeah, me too. I took his classes, his last class before he passed away in
uh
Bowie, Texas. Yeah.
yeah, I was a big fan of Bud's, and he talked about um grazing in a really helpful way. It took me a long time to sort through it all. And when I've come to Africa, I can understand it in a different context too. And so what he would always say is like if you have 10 paddocks, then you start in the first one, and when it's about halfway grazed, you move to the next one. And
No,
just
no, 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 no. That's opposite of what I do.
we're not talking about what you do right now. We're talking about what I do. Just one second.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, but
So
can you read what I have there?
yeah,
The importance of removing the stems.
yeah, but see what to me, what I do is before it has stems, to me there's two different things that happens, right? Before it has stems, um I don't and Bud apparently too, I don't see any reason to take everything. I take half, right? And then
Okay, please
it,
explain to me, when does that happen that grass don't have stems? When it's
well,
very young?
yeah, well, when it's, I can take you
No,
to,
no, just tell me, this size,
well,
because I've been there. I've been in Africa, and I farmed in the tropics all my life.
uh-huh.
So,
Well,
okay,
like what I'm looking for is a nice thick sword like this that doesn't have any
okay.
stems.
Well,
And
depending on the species, it will have stems or not. Okay, go
so,
forward.
so hear me out here. So when it first is green, you come through, you take half, you move to the next one, you take half, still green, you move to the next one. Now your first paddock is ready to graze again. You've again got this much. Then you come back to that,
I
right?
understand.
And
Yeah.
then you take half of that. You take
Mhm.
you, but as it's getting drier, so now of your 10 paddocks, you got to um you got to five, right? And now you have stems. And now that's when I go into density, if possible. I go into density and I prefer to knock down those stems and just lay them on the ground, not to eat them, not to make them eat them, but
Mhm.
then lay those down and then again, just always going back to that first paddock because I've come here and I can see, so you can see the hills behind me. In the
Yeah.
valley between us, there is a place on my neighbors where the wildlife, whenever it rains, the wildlife go back to that, right?
Mhm.
And and they go there, zebras, eland, eventually the elephants come, everything comes there after it rains. And there's never extremely high density. I mean, by our standards, by my standards, they're sort of spread out. I guess much like the pictures you've seen of the area,
Yeah, yeah.
and and yet it's extremely even. It's not what you would call selective grazing.
Of course not, because you have hang out fermenters.
Well, you can do it with cattle too. I did the same thing.
Ah,
I did this.
please, let's talk about that. How do cattle graze? Selectively or uniformly?
They graze uniformly when the forage is of uniform quality.
Sorry, it's not.
Well,
Well, observe closely, and you
no,
will see that they always select.
no.
And anyone that has cattle can attest to this.
Well, I can show you pictures. I mean, if you do
Not,
like what
not
I'm
pictures,
saying,
videos, because
uh,
some plants will be taken down to the ground and some will be left untouched.
and I think that, sometimes there I'll come through and eat everything with a certain class of animals. But the idea that, like if you're looking at nature, the idea that you need to do that all the time, you know, in like in the Serengeti, to use your example from the Serengeti, like
Yeah,
there is actually times when there is extremely high density in the Serengeti of
yeah,
ruminants.
yeah.
But most of the time there's not. And some of the
I,
time
I
it resembles, set stocking in
I agree. But back in 1985, that I was there in Tanzania, where they excluded the people from thousands and thousands of acres for hunting. All the herds were tightly packed by lions and hyena. I was following a herd of buffalo, Cape buffalo, for the whole day, close to them, crawling amongst them. And every time they catch the scent of a lion or hyenas, they will run and stampede again and reform again. So it was not like what you see in a landscape devoid of these predators. When these predators are there, they are not hanging out by themselves. They are closely packed. And I
well,
never saw, wait, I never saw a herd uh, as you described when we were hunting. And I was there 21 days. And I saw, we even went to the Rubo Valley with the Maasai. The same happened.
but yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you because like if we're sitting out here at nighttime, you'll hear lions just constantly. Like there's no shortage of lions here, and yet the animals, they're sort of loosely packed. What I would call, when it rains over there and when they all move in there, it's like the density that I would, there's probably 30,000 pounds to the acre or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well,
there's a lot of animals, but it's
how did nature achieve a total grace without packing them close together? How did nature achieve it?
well, nature achieved it a certain way. And
No,
you know,
just tell me how, not a certain way. I need you
why
to
don't you tell me?
describe.
Why don't you tell me
I will
what
tell you,
nature?
yes. Yeah, the ruminants consumed the best parts and then moved on when the dry season came in, and the hindgut fermenters stayed behind because they could, and they could consume the lower parts left behind by the ruminants. And that created the total grace, which is how plant physiology was molded after a million years. That's why green leaves produce energy while stems consume energy. And that's why growth points are close to the soil or below the soil surface. And that's why when we take off everything in one grazing, we get much higher grass productivity, 3 to 5 times higher, and stocking rate, which determines profits. You haven't talked about stocking rate, and that's the main subject here, because that's what produces profits and improves the land fastest.
Yeah, and you have to get a good stocking rate. Um, yeah, my my stocking rate is high. My the
We need double and triple that
I
because
talked to the people, like the my neighbors down here, and I tell them, do you know that there's cattle on my property? And they'll say, no, I don't really know there's cattle on your property. And their property is totally devastated. Their property is totally devastated.
yeah,
It's
continuous grazing is the very word. So don't compare whatever we're doing to continuous grazing because that's if as if you like the carbon cowboys. They say, "Oh, we're better than continuous grazing." Well, it's like if you say, "Oh, I won a race against a one-legged man." Don't compare to the worst one.
well,
Compare to the best one.
yeah, but um, I have 10 times, I have 10 times
Oh,
higher stocking rate what they have.
the
And,
worst. Yeah. Okay.
so, it's like the I guess one thing that I thought about when about the stocking rate issue, like you say, they've got to be fat, they've got to be of high quality. And when Johann Zietzman was here the other day, he was
Uh,
talking, and I thought of he talked about something that hadn't occurred to me, and he said it was in relation to um, oh, what was it? About raising heifers or something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
about what?
About raising heifers,
Oh,
about
yeah, yeah,
raising moderate-sized heifers, and
yeah.
he said that um, fat, it takes 2.5 times more energy to make fat than it does to make muscle. And so
Lean mouth.
the problem is that I think sometimes when people are letting the grass grow super tall and then taking it all at once, they are they are just making the cattle thin, and so they have twice as many of them there.
Yeah,
But you have to like you have to have 2.5 times
yeah.
more cattle if they're gaining 0.9 pounds a day than
There
mine.
you go.
if they're gaining 2.1 pounds a day. So,
That's why an integral part of the total grazing program is the art of jumping paddocks.
mhm,
Because just as you said that you jump to your highest quality paddocks when they have no stems,
mhm,
I do the same, but I do not take them off after they graze half. I have them graze it all because when you graze half, selective grazing, you favor your poorer species to take over your land. And that's what happens. Wait, let me finish.
mhm.
And this way, by taking it all instead of only half, your herd advances slower. And because the quality is very high, they gain very fast. And that allows you the flexibility to stockpile for winter or dry season a large section of your farm. And that's where you recruit the seedlings of your best species. If we were to do that, take half and come back faster, we would incur in overgrazing whenever we have a dry spell, and we will certainly kill all the seedlings of our best species because they will be plucked out of the soil, roots and all, by returning livestock.
Well, and that's
Wait, I am talking at very high stocking rates. If we're not going to talk about very high stocking rates, um, all this won't make sense. If we are just playing that we're better than the worst, that this doesn't make sense. This only makes sense if on a for-profit grazing operation.
I agree. I totally agree.
And,
And
and fat cows, fat cows, fat cows is my slogan. If they're not fat, good body condition, you're going to lose money.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Um, and so, yeah, to me, I mean, I guess I don't know what to tell you. Like when somebody says that something I do every day is impossible, I would
No. I
say
believe you. I believe you. But the stocking rate is the crucial point, the center point of this.
I can,
Even though you're better than continuous grazing, uh, and I applaud you because any type of grazing that's better than continuous grazing is a bonus. It's good. It's positive. That doesn't mean we need to stop halfway. We need to go all the way and get to be the best in the world. And we do that by mimicking the ancient grazers that molded plant physiology. Please consider plant physiology. You're not considering plant physiology.
what do you mean? I am considering plant food. So,
No,
but
because
if I
because
go, if I
you're
go,
grazing you're grazing selectively, and
I'm
that
not grazing
creates a
selectively.
shift. You told me you leave half. That means grazing selectively.
I
Whenever
disagree.
we allow our livestock to select, they will select the best and leave the rest.
I disagree. I disagree.
Okay,
When you
I
graze
hear you.
when you graze those plants before they start to put out a stem, especially if you've got runner grasses and you are coming back to those grasses when they're ready, they're not going to have stems. I don't know. Like I say,
Well,
I can take you, to a place right here, and I can show you completely beautiful place, and I can, we had a ranch that had 500 head of, it was a commercial operation in Oregon and in a completely opposite climate. And it was the same situation. We maintained that condition, that vegetative condition, by going back when those grasses were ready to be grazed. So
oh, you mean by the coast on the floodplain?
yep. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Now tell me this: Do you have volcanic soils where you're at now?
Mm, I don't think that you'd call them volcanic soils.
I
Why?
don't know.
What is it?
High fertility soils? Because in very high fertility soils, you can get away with doing this type of grazing, but that doesn't mean that it will regenerate very degraded soils like I had to start with in Florida, sandy soil, 1% organic matter, and we increased it in a hot environment to 3.18 in 5 years. So the more difficult the environment, the more the total grazing program shines because we follow nature, plant physiology. The easier the environment, the higher the quality of the soil or the rains or whatever, the easier it is to get away with not following nature. Let me explain. If you have high biodiversity, 16, 30 some species, and you put your cattle in when it's green and Dutch, and you only take half of it, will they not focus on the highest quality plants and graze also the lower quality plants evenly to a certain height as if they were a mower, or would they select?
Well, like I say, I can show you've seen those videos. I can show you
Mhm.
videos in Oregon,
No,
where
no, in Africa, in Oregon, you didn't have 30 species.
in
In Africa,
well, in California, we'd have 30. I didn't have 30 species in Oregon because it was flooded. It would flood. And
I
so
know.
we leased ground in, it would go, there would be 6 species here, and then you go up 1 foot and there'd be 30 species. So
I,
we'd have
that's
we'd have 30 species up there. Um, and but like in California, say we would have 30 species on a 10 by 10 plot, 10 by 10 meter plot. And yeah, it does work. I mean, it
so
works
the cattle didn't select the best species and left the worst species behind?
as long as you don't let it go too long, right? As
Yeah,
long
yeah,
as
of
you,
course, of
as
course.
long as you don't, as long as
Okay,
you're focused on this, and then
I
you put
agree.
it down, and
Okay.
it
Then you told me that when it gets STEMI later in the year, what do you do then?
then that's when I want to go into density. Yeah, into
Mhm.
high density.
And what happens?
Then they what I want to do, what I prefer to do, because I don't like making them take all the grass just because of
Yeah.
what it does to the animals. I prefer
Right.
to in a good, like in Oregon, what I would do, because I think you showed me some pictures of flares. I had
No, no, what you do now in Africa, you were telling me about Africa, that
uh,
you take it when it's young and vegetative and you achieve uh,
yeah, same.
a non-selective graze, but to a certain height, like if it was a mower, and then when it gets drier, you return and you said that you graze it and trample it and harvest less. Is that correct?
I want to just have them take what they want in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, but I want them to smash the rest down onto the ground. And
Okay.
and
So
that's
you, yeah,
that.
go ahead.
And so like in here, I think I haven't, the reason I'm not using this as a high biodiversity example, I'm sure it is, but I haven't sampled it yet. But those other places I've
No
sampled,
problem.
so I know.
No problem.
Um,
No problem.
but but like what I would do in Oregon is
No, no, let's go back to Africa. Please stay focused. Don't go back to Oregon. What do you do in Africa?
here. I listened to your presentation. Why don't you just let me talk about what I did, because
Oh, okay,
it's
okay. I'm
here
sorry.
because
Sorry.
here I'm using herders, right? I don't have paddocks, so it's not as clear of an example, you know what I'm saying? So in
Mhm.
Oregon, I would bring cattle in as soon as I could, and I had lanes. So I guess I don't know if you know about you. I worked for Chad Peterson for 3 years when he was
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. So I've been
In Missouri?
in Nebraska when he was in Nebraska.
Oh, yeah. I remember him in Nebraska, and then he moved to Billings, Montana.
Yep.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And so
Okay.
and so and like I guess I should make that point. Like in I didn't grow up on a farm and a ranch. In 1998 or whatever, when Savory's second edition book came out, I had already read the first one, but I was in high school. I had to get that I had to read the other one, and it was almost identical, except it had this section about ultra high density grazing. And I said to myself, I said, that's what I want to do. That that's what I want to do. And nobody was doing it in America, right, at that time. And and so I went to Africa and found some people who were doing it. And then I found Chad, right? So, and I worked there for 3 years. So it's not like I'm against like it's not, I'm not reactionary, right? So in Oregon, for instance, I would bring cattle in and I would be grazing. early in the spring, as early as I could get them on, because it flooded. And so as the flood water was going down, I would have cattle on, right? And I would spread them out. And then as the grass was starting to get away from me, I would put them in smaller and smaller areas. And then I was moving around, like I would give 500 head of cattle 5 acres a day, something like that. And and then um, I would, as soon as that first paddock that I was that I my first paddock was ready, I would come back to that, right? And I'd go like that, I'd go like that. Then I'd get maybe 2 or 3 rotations like that. And then about June 15th, every year, the growth slows down, right? So then there was all this grass that had grown in the spring that had gotten away from me that I hadn't thought about, I hadn't worried about. And then that's when I would go there and I would do very high density. So I would be at, I mean, I called it high density. I don't know if you would, but 500,000 or 1,000,000 pounds to the acre, something like that. And I would, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't taking more days from that grass than I had taken from the other pastures. And I would just make them lay it down, and and as soon as it was laid down, I'd give them the next one, give them the next one, give them the next one. Because what I wanted to do was I just wanted to lay all that down so it could start regrowing again, you know? And
Mhm.
so after 6 weeks of that, I would, um, there would be lots of stuff that had regrown in those 6 weeks. And I would go back out to, you know, 5 or 10 acre paddocks, on these, and they would again take it very even. And that was lower biodiversity areas, granted. But like I say, it also works here. It also worked in California. And um, that to me, honestly, is mimicking what we see in the Serengeti. Like what we see in the Serengeti is we see in, January, February, March, animals that are relatively spread out in the southern. I mean, not they're like I described, like 500 in 10 acres or something like that. It's not, it's it seems pretty dense to my neighbors, right? But it's not ultra high density. Um,
Why do you talk about ultra high density? I am talking about the total grazing program. I don't do ultra high density.
I'm not saying you do. I'm just using a term that's sort of value neutral. Like it's very high density. Like there's a very high density of animals.
I don't do that. I
I'm not
don't do that.
saying I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying that there is a very high density of animals in that. I'm not saying ultra high density trademark if that's such a thing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but the um so in January, February, March, they're relatively spread out. Then, as those areas start to dry out, they start moving. And then eventually they move to areas that have been growing all season long and are 3 foot tall and are um, full of lions. And that is when they go into very high density, the highest density possible. They are shoulder to shoulder and they move through there. There's hundreds of thousands of them shoulder to shoulder in a line and they flatten everything. And they do that, but they only do that for 6 weeks, a month, 2 months, something like that in general. And then they get to areas on the northern part of the ecosystem where there's resident herds, right? And so those animals have been there um, for all year, and then they've been keeping the grass short. Basically, the point is that very high density is a seasonal phenomenon. And it really worked well for me in Oregon. Like I say, I would go into high density as a seasonal thing, which gave me twice as long of it gave me an opportunity to lengthen my rotation for in the summer when I needed twice as much recovery time. So that stockpile that I made in the spring and then used starting June 15th, that got me those extra 6 weeks. And then the rest of the ranch could be totally, it was thick and it was tall and it was great. And then they would come through again and they would graze that evenly. So, yeah, uh, I, um, I can show you pictures of that and that sort of thing. Yeah, and I understand now that you've explained it that you feel like the the hindgut fermenters means that you need to make those cattle dense all year round. I don't.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I said we use non-selective grazing as our
Mhm.
preferred style of grazing,
Mhm.
while other people do selective grazing as their preferred style of grazing. That's it.
Yeah. And like I say, like that term selective and non-selective, it because again, to me, when when I'm getting a very even graze, then I I do not want selective grazing. Like as you nobody does. It's dumb. Like selective grazing
When
is,
you trample a lot of forage and they do not consume it, that's selectivity.
but that works. That
I know, it's working for you.
that
I understand, but wouldn't you have a much higher stocking rate if instead of allowing them to leave behind a lot of forage, you would consume it all?
well, like again, going back to my mentor, Bud Williams, he always said like that forage is not wasted. Like that is not wasted. And I completely
I
agree.
I
Like
understand,
it comes
but
there and
I, I did
even
I didn't say it was wasted. It
uh-huh,
was a question.
uh-huh.
Wouldn't you maintain a much higher stocking rate if instead of stomping it to the ground, the cattle would consume it?
I think that that is um how would I say? I think that that's penny wise and pound foolish because I'm trading grass that grew in May 15th to July 1st when everybody on the whole continent has got lots of grass. I'm trading for very high quality grass at other times of year, you know? And I'm doing that when I do that, it's just amazing. Like I don't know the science behind it. I wish somebody did because I feel like there the plant would translocate nutrients to the roots, something would happen, and it would be extremely dense and that sort of thing for the rest of the year. And the other thing is that I had dependable irrigation water. I flood irrigated,
I
and
know.
and so then um, you know, what I wanted to do was get that old material down so that I could grow something new in its place.
How
And
did you, yeah, but you need to take it off or it will create a patch.
it,
When
but
you
it,
trample a lot of material into the ground
I,
and you have a liter this deep, then the growth points are shaded out and they start to die. Unless, oh, where did you take your cows in the winter?
the cows went to California in the winter. Cattle,
Ah,
cattle went to California.
okay. So let's say you cannot do that. You
What's that?
cannot send them away for the winter. How would you maintain them through the winter?
I can't there. I rented that ground because it flooded. It would flood 20 feet deep in water. And so I didn't worry about thatch.
So that was a special situation, right?
it was a special situation, but it was also a special situation in terms of how much it grew. Like,
I understand.
if it couldn't grow 8 feet tall, then I wouldn't have had to worry about that anyway. But
I
I
understand.
but even in that same year, you know, the it grew right through there, and you come through again, you smash it down. It is, I mean, it worked pretty fantastic to me. And I didn't have to do that all the time, but sometimes because of the flooding, there would be, the grass would, it was canary grass, phalaris, and the grass would grow through the water, and I would then have to do something with it. And it worked really well to lay it down and then have it come through there. But if I laid it down in a different situation, if it wasn't as productive, it wouldn't have been as thick.
I
Um,
understand. Yes. Okay. Um, so can we get out of the floodplain and go to somewhere that is more normal, like the other 99.9% of the world?
I've been all over. I've been all over.
Okay.
As,
Okay. So let's talk about a more so people can relate to, because a floodplain that gets flooded 8 feet deep every year, cool season grasses, is not what everybody has.
no, but I, like the advantage of going around the world, right, is you get to see what is unique to a particular place and
Exactly.
what is um what goes across all grazing environments, right? All
Yes.
savanna environments, I would say.
Yes.
So, like I
So
said,
let's,
I've been in Nebraska, and I've been in California. I've been in Oregon. I've been here, and there's certain things that go across to all those places,
there
and
are, there are
there
universal principles.
there's universal principles, and
Hmm.
there's others that don't. Um, but anyway, I I agree that having other diversity in our grazing system would make things a lot better. I have camels right now, and let me tell you, every rancher needs some camels. They are they are fantastic. Speaking
Okay.
of the native North American
Yes, they are.
animals,
Have you been to Australia?
I've never been to Australia. No.
They have camels there. I was there in February and March, and I'm going back in November.
Uh-huh.
They have camels there, but they don't know what to do with them. Nobody wants to eat them.
They eat them here. Everybody here says that the camel meat is the best.
But nobody, they have these camels and nobody wants them.
Hmm.
But they bought them to bring new microbes to the rumen of the cows through the water they drink
Uh-huh.
and to browse.
Uh-huh.
And they do browse and they are good. But you see, in the Basque Country, I was there in June and I'm going back next week. They have meat horses, horses for meat, a
Uh-huh.
special breed that
Uh-huh.
they sell in Spain, in Italy, and
Uh-huh.
in Hungary,
Uh-huh.
and in Belgium.
Uh-huh.
But and horses are hang-out fermenters, so they prefer a higher stem, lower leaf ratio in their diet than cows. Cows require a higher green leaf, lower stem diet in ratio in their diet. So I told them to put them together with the cows and that to achieve a total graze easier, and they did, and it's working perfectly because we have hangout fermenters with ruminants. The
Yeah,
problem is that in the US, you cannot consume horse meat. So I cannot bring that here. But in Europe, it's working very well.
we have to change that. I think that we just
Yeah.
change that. But I get in trouble from everybody on all sides of the political spectrum if I say that people should eat horses. But It's
Well, it was the first domesticated uh, animal that, and people ate them, and people still eat them in many countries, but not in the United States, where they are considered pets.
uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, well, okay. So that's why we need to use cattle as hang gut fermenters, because we don't have the hang gut fermenters anymore, and we are not allowed to consume horses or donkeys or zebras in the US. That's a problem.
Yeah, I feel like so the our points of tension here, we've got a few points of tension. I feel like we have to create the conditions for our bovids to thrive. You know, we have to create a forage condition that allows them to thrive and put them on that also.
Yes,
So
yes.
I think, you know, it really, um, yeah, there's it in 20 million years of evolution, you know, nature never came up with a bovid that could do those things. Um, and
What
so
is a bogle? What is a bogle?
a bovid, a cattle, a cow,
Oh, a ruminant.
a ruminant, bovid, the bovid family, the four stomach animals, the
Bovine. You said
bovine.
bogle, so I couldn't understand. And my English is not that good. I am my maternal tongue in Spanish, even though my mother was American. So I am better in Spanish. Okay,
Your
so
English is great.
let me read you this. What about animal performance? Some of you may be thinking, if I graze everything down that far, won't my cattle suffer? Won't performance drop? This is where the art of jumping paddocks comes in. In the grid season, forage quality changes rapidly. As you said, at first it's higher quality and then later it gets timid. So some paddocks will be at peak nutrition while others are not. If we leave cattle in an average paddock for too long, they graze selectively, performance suffers, and plants weaken, our best species. So what do? Well, we jump through a livestock corridor into the highest quality paddocks at the right time. So cattle get to eat the best forage, which helps maintain top performance. And across the ranch, we still enforce total grazing, so no plants are left behind to get rank or to dominate. It's like combining the best of both worlds, high cattle performance and uniform land regeneration. So this is on my own ranch. I've seen this play out many times. I am in the dry tropics with common Bermuda and other tropical grasses, and I created a savanna with leucaena and other trees for fodder. Early in the green season, I will move the herd into a paddock that at just the right stage. Leafy, high energy, high digestibility. They thrive, they gain fast, they get fat. But instead of letting them nibble selectively and then come back later, I graze it all down, clean and uniform to 1 to 4 inches of the soil. And they can do it because it's high quality at that stage. By using the art of jumping paddocks, I do not sacrifice performance. Instead, I synchronize it with the natural flow of forage quality, just as wild herds once did when diverse grazers moved across the landscapes. Now, these are the results of going further, not staying at the take half, leave half, which, by the way, was a failed experiment done by Kreider in 1950 to prove that overgrazing was bad. And back in that time, everybody was doing continuous grazing. So under continuous grazing, he made the recommendation of only take half and leave half. But when we manage this way, the results speak for themselves. We get a higher stocking rate because every plant is grazed and regrows stronger, because that's how basic plant physiology works. We can carry more cattle on the same land. Many ranchers double their herd size the first year compared to selective rotational grazing. We have done this in large scale and small scale. Lower hay bills with more forage stockpile and better utilization, harvest efficiency, dependence on hay drops dramatically. healthier soils. Uniform grazing triggers the fatty root exudates when plants grow over mature, feeding fat soil microbes that fungi convert into long-lived soil carbon. The soil becomes spongier, holds more water, and grows more grass. When we leave litter behind, that creates around 10% of your long-lived soil carbon. The other 90% of long-lived soil carbon is created by fatty root exudates when we stockpile. And I have a paper on that I sent you months ago. You can read it. We get docile, trusting herds because moves are predictable and cattle always find high quality forage. They become calmer and easier to handle. Fat wallets. At the end of the day, more forage plus healthier, high performing cattle equals more profit. So that's why we cannot stop halfway in our evolution from continuous grazing to rotational grazing to more advanced grazing that you're practicing, but we want to go further to really mimic nature. So, my friends, the next time you hear someone say, leave half the grass behind or move before it's all eaten, remember what's really happening. That's selective grazing and it holds your land back. Nature never worked that way. The Pleistocene herds didn't leave half the grass. They grazed it all, moved on, and didn't return until recovery was complete. And that's the model we follow. By practicing the art of jumping paddocks, we make sure our cattle stay productive while our land heals the fastest. That's how we build fat soil, fat cattle, and fat wallets. And that's it.
Well,
This is in a nutshell.
like I say,
That's what we do.
the things, the things we agree on.
Yeah.
I I go to the best paddock. I focus on keeping grass in a vegetative state and and grazing it in that state as much as I can. And I I think that jumping paddocks is what makes life worth living. That's that's the fun thing. That's what makes life worth living for me as the herder and for the cattle too. I do question your statement about the Pleistocene herds.
Mhm.
I think again, like I say, nobody wants to leave stems. I don't want to leave stems. I don't like, what I call selective grazing, which I think is the same as what you call it. It's where some places are down to the ground, other places there's just these welding rods, I call them, of stems, and that doesn't work. That's no good.
No,
That
that doesn't work.
that is totally that totally doesn't work. Like I say, I just like being in Africa, seeing how herds move. There is a different way, is all I'm saying, besides having to take it all the way down. Like these animals here in this valley, they don't they don't take it all the way down either. It's very even, it's very, and it's is the natural home of Bermuda. So I would imagine that you could do the same thing there. But it's so anyway, that's my opinion on it and my observation. But yeah, I've got like probably 5 more minutes and then I've got to jump on
No,
a
no, no. It's
yep.
good. You made your point. I respect it, and I commend you for what you're doing. You're doing much better than most. Much better. You said 10 times more than continuous grazing. That's great. And you're taking care of your land and you have wildlife. Oh, that is great. I love Africa. I love what you're doing. Um, I'm just putting out what I believe and what I do. And stocking rate is still the main determinant of profitability, and
I,
it's how we can improve our land the fastest.
I com-
But we need a high stocking rate with productive animals. And to be productive, they need to be in good body condition.
Mhm.
And that's what we get. That's why my slogan is fat cows, fat cows, fat cows.
I completely
Okay.
agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Nate. And
Okay, thank you, Jaime.
I hope you have a great day. And when you have this recording, please send it to me.
Okay, I will. I'll send it to you. All right.
Okay, it was great finally getting to meet you.
Yeah. Let's do it again sometime.
And I would love to go and visit you there in Kenya.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, thank you and bye
Okay,
bye.
take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.